You're listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. She is passionate, direct, and sometimes a little sarcastic, but always gives you what you need to succeed in business. Now, here's your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 42. How to be productive when life throws you a curveball with Betsy Furler. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to take consistent, massive, focused action in your business and life, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Today's episode is an entrepreneurial case study interview. This is where I interview entrepreneurs just like you about their challenges, real-world challenges with productivity, how they've overcome them, tips, strategies, and tools, and then they share the great benefits of doing so in both their business and life. I'm excited about this episode because you're going to get to meet our guest, Betsy Furler. Betsy is an entrepreneur with several businesses. Betsy is your app lady, providing you with information about great apps that will change your life. She's also the CEO of Communication Circles, a unique agency that provides digital product design services specializing in accessibility and usability products, as well as direct services to people with disabilities utilizing tech solutions. Betsy is considered a thought leader in the use of technology and people with disabilities. And she's a speech pathologist with 25 years of experience. When listening in on my conversation with Betsy, you will discover how to not fall prey to how you're feeling or what you've been through, the link between grace and mindset you need to take advantage of, the mind-relaxing activity that can help you have a productive afternoon, and the great apps and software that can save you time and aid your productivity, and so much more. So let's dive right in and meet Betsy. Hello, Betsy, and welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
I am so looking forward to it. You and I met this fall at a conference, and I put a call out looking for entrepreneurs who have struggled with productivity, have overcome those challenges, and have a great story. And you shared your story with me, and I'm so looking forward to sharing that with our audience and listeners today. So let's dive right in and tell us a little bit about yourself, Betsy, and your companies. That's not something I always get to say to my guests, and a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a business owner and a mom and a wife and a speech pathologist. I live in Houston, Texas, and I have been a speech pathologist for 25 years. For most of those 24 years, I have also been in business for myself on the side. About 5 years ago, I started pivoting towards the tech world. So I now own a speech therapy company. I have about 11 employees. And I also do tech consulting in the area of designing great products that work for everyone. Because I believe if you can design a product to work for the weakest user, you're able to design a really great product for everybody. And what I bring to that is my skill set of working for 25 years with people with all kinds of different abilities and challenges and from different cultures and different age groups. So I do those two companies. And then my husband and I also own a small remodeling company. He's been super busy since the flood.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, our house didn't flood, but our neighborhood did. So he's been really busy with that. And then I also have a brand called Your App Lady, where I just blog and put Facebook posts up about great apps that can change people's lives. So I'm basically obsessed with technology and using technology just to help people have better lives. And my mission is to make technology as impactful to other people's lives as it has been to mine, and to make that technology actually usable so people don't get frustrated with it and they actually feel like it's improving their lives.
I love that mission because there's many people out there that it seem very challenged with technology, and they don't get to reap the multiple benefits of utilizing technology either in their life or their business because of the inability to find simplicity with them. So I love that you're on a mission to share good apps that you find and share that knowledge with more people for sure.
Yeah, I think people just get really frustrated and scared, and then they start backing away from technology and not getting those benefits from it. And technology definitely is a part of my productivity every day.
Right, right. Share with us why you chose entrepreneurship. You had mentioned that wasn't your path the whole time. So why did you jump into entrepreneurship?
Originally, I had my own private practice on the side. I had a full-time job as a speech therapist, and then I was seeing patients on the side and just a couple hours a week just to make a little extra money. And then when my son was born, and he's almost 20, he'll be 20 in February. And when he was born, I had a very rough pregnancy and I was on bed rest for the last 12 weeks. No, not quite 12 weeks. It should have been 12 weeks. I went on at 28 weeks, 8 weeks. He was born at 36. He was very sick and he could not go to daycare or, do any of the typical things that you normally would do with a baby so you can go off to work. And I immediately knew that going into business for myself was probably going to be the easiest path to take. We knew early on that this was going to be a chronic condition and that we needed to be prepared. And so I went into business for myself so I could spend a lot more time with him. And so I could have the flexibility that I needed to be there for him when he was sick.
Okay, that's great. I feel like a lot of people get into entrepreneurship because of some sort of life change. I've shared in previous episodes that my life change was when I had my son as well. Not wanting to work my way up the corporate ladder and work all those crazy hours to achieve someone else's goals. And the way forward for me was being a business owner and an entrepreneur. And I love that you and I both share that similarity in our story, but also that we really created this so that we have flexibility with our time so that we can be more available for our family and our children, which was, it seems like, what catapulted your decision.
Right. And then I really got more and more involved in my businesses when he went off to college. So he went off to college about a year and a half ago. And I suddenly had a lot more time on my hands and I was able to really delve into all my businesses and my husband's business. And I love being an employer and being able to make a difference in other people's lives by giving them a job. I love the flexibility that it allows me to go anywhere and do what I want to do. And I'm just super motivated. I think I'm more motivated as my own boss than I am working for someone else. I think everyone is.
I think so too. I certainly am myself. Mm-hmm. So share with us, what does your typical day look like with owning so many businesses?
Well, I don't really have a typical day. In fact, one of my productivity struggles has been that I want to have an ideal week and I want to stick with that. And I can't ever do it. So I finally decided a month or two ago that I have to kind of let go of that ideal week, quote unquote. I think I told you this when we met in person. I love productivity. Like I've been obsessed with productivity since I was a little girl. One of my favorite books was the book Cheaper by the Dozen, which was made into a movie, as everyone knows. But it was also a book written, I believe, in the 50s or 60s and set like in the 20s. And it was this family and they had 10 children and the dad was a productivity expert. And so everything was about how fast can you do this and how fast can you do that? And everything is cheaper by the dozen. So I have always loved productivity. So I get frustrated easily when I can't be productive. And because of Henry's health problems, even though he is now, like I said, off at college, we still have a lot of doctor's appointments. We have times where he's sick and I have to go to him. And then with all the businesses and all those moving parts, and I have a 13-year-old Sam, who's also very involved in a lot of school activities and sports and all of that kind of thing, that I don't quite have an ideal week, but I will give you kind of a snapshot of what this week is going to look like.
Okay, that sounds good. I think this is interesting for everyone that's listening because entrepreneurship can be kind of lonely and we think, oh, this is how I do it. But to get into the glimpse of how other people do it, I think, well, for me is fascinating. I'll assume it's pretty fascinating for our listeners. So, all right, give us a glimpse into this week.
So on Sunday, every Sunday, we're almost always at a sporting event that our son is playing in, Sam. And so while I'm watching him, I always sketch out my week in my bullet journal. So I actually draw my layout and it's not super fancy or anything, but I feel like actually drawing it out and then writing what I'm doing is really helpful to me to get my week started. So I do that on Sunday. I kind of put the highlights of each day, not routine tasks, but being on your podcast was on is one of my events this week. So I have that listed out as well as my task list for the week and specific to-dos if I have to do certain things on certain days. So I do that on Sunday. Then on Monday, today I woke up. Last night I looked at my task list and decided what tasks I was going to work on today. I usually choose between 3 and 5 tasks to work on each day. So I'd done that last night. So this morning I woke up, and on Mondays I try to really ease into the week. I try not to make it stressful and a sudden change into the week. So I kind of ease into the week, and I get up on Monday morning and I do a little straightening around the house, kind of getting it back into normal, back from the weekend.
Right. When the house looks lived in, right? From the weekend.
Right. And I find that when I wake up in the morning, I'm really not a morning person, but I do get up fairly early, and I do listen to like just a short, it's not really a meditation, but just kind of a short mindset framing type recording each morning. I do that, and I usually listen to a podcast, and I get my son off to school, and I'm still not very productive till around 9:30 as far as sitting down and doing focused work. So on Monday and every other day from about 8 when I get him off to school till about 9:30, I try to do something sort of active. So I either pick up the house, or I do laundry, or I might go for a walk or walk on the treadmill. I do something sort of active. And then at about 9:30, that's when my really focused time comes in. This morning, I had a consulting job I needed to do some work on. So I sat down at the computer and did that. I listened to a couple of more podcasts. I posted an article on Medium and LinkedIn having to do with my consulting business. And I looked through all of the free apps for the day. I do that every day. And then I ate lunch, and then I take a nap for about 45 minutes every afternoon. So from about 1:30 to about 2:15, I take a nap. And then when I wake up, I'm able to do another chunk of about 45 minutes of focused time, usually writing some content.
So I've got to pause you for a second because I wasn't expecting the nap. Tell us about that, because I used to be a huge nap taker, and I'm a proponent of anyone that feels like they need to take a nap to get the best use of the rest of their day. So how did that come about, and how have you found benefit in your day by taking regular naps?
Well, what happened is, obviously, when I was out of the house more, so I used to do more actual therapy myself. Like I would actually do the therapy. Now I do very little of that. I only do about 4 hours a week of speech therapy. So obviously, when I was doing that all day, every day, I did not have the luxury of taking a nap. But once I started doing a lot of focused work at home, where I was writing content and spending a lot of time really working on my business, I discovered that from about 1:30 on, I was really not able to get much done. I would sit down and try to write, but I really couldn't focus on it. And I was having a lot of trouble with that. So I love to nap. I need a lot of sleep. So I started just taking a nap for about 45 minutes and discovered that was the key to actually having a productive afternoon. And I discovered too that if I can get focused times of work in, no matter what my circumstances are for the day, I can actually get a lot of action items taken care of instead of spending a lot of time kind of spinning my wheels looking at email or all of that.
Oh my gosh, I love
time where you
this.
think you're working, but you're actually wasting time.
Totally burning that time, because you would have totally wasted the 45 minutes just piddling around, keeping yourself busy, not doing anything that was of value, like the focused work that you're talking about. So instead, you've done it your way. Like you realize that 45 minutes gives you a power nap to push through the rest of the day, and it's exactly what you need. I really, really like that. I will confess. So I have an office outside of my home, and I have a couch in my office that local clients will come sit on when we do coaching sessions and stuff. And there's times that I will just sit on the couch and either take a short nap, or not even a nap anymore, because I realize I haven't needed that recently, but just like quiet time, like away from work. Even sometimes when I've done a lot of focus work for the day and my head feels like it's kind of gonna blow up. Like some days, you can it feels like it's gonna smoke. I'll put Netflix on my phone and I'll just watch like 30 minutes of Netflix that makes me not think of work at all, so that when I get back to work, I can go back into my focused thinking, and it kind of refreshes me and gives my head and mind the break that I need. So that was an unexpected share on my behalf, because you're sharing yours. So I love it. Okay.
Well, and if I can't fall asleep, like if I don't need a nap for some reason or can't sleep, which rarely happens to me, but it does occasionally, I will listen to a book on Audible that's not a business book. I listen to a lot of business books on Audible, but in that situation, there's one narrator that I really love, George Guadell. I love his voice. And so I'll just listen to him reading something. It doesn't even matter what it is.
That is so cool. Okay. So I didn't mean to cut you off. So let's just finish through today to finish that up for whomever's listening. So I cut you off right after a nap, I think.
Okay. So after my nap, I wake up from that and I take about 10 minutes to kind of get myself back into the day. And then I gather my iPad. I do most of my work from my iPad. I gather my iPad and I go to school to pick up Sam. I usually get there about 25 to 30 minutes early. And I do that on purpose, not to get in the front of the line because he's 13, so he can walk out to me. So I park in the parking lot. But I have found that is another really great productive time for me. So I'm awake and fresh from my nap. I'm in my car, so I can't get distracted by anything else. And I get about 30 more minutes of focused work done, usually writing content while I'm waiting for him to come out of school.
Do you have intentions of what you're going to spend that 30 minutes on before you even get in the car? Or do you figure that out once you get there?
No, I have intentions. I have my task list for the week and I've chosen my 3 or 4 things I'm going to do that day. And I do write every day though. I try to write about 500 to 600 words a day at least, but I take something from my task list. So it might be an article that I'm working on. I posted one today on Apple's hard reset. There's an issue with Apple's hard reset. So I might have, Apple article and I'll work on that for the time that I'm waiting. If I'm done with whatever that task is, I might go into my email and respond to a couple of emails or send a Voxer to my assistant. But I try to really sit there and focus on the content or other tasks that need my complete focus. Once I get sitting, I get Sam and I chat with him and we come home and he kind of gets settled. And then when he's settled doing something, I do what I call my unfocused work. So that would be looking at email, responding to Facebook posts, reading articles on Medium. Now I'm taking a course on design. And so some of the lessons are fun, easy to me, like creative type things that I don't really need to spend all my focus on. If he needs me, I can stop it easily and pick up with him. And so that's what I do in the afternoon until dinner time. And sometimes in the evenings, I might do another 30-minute session of writing. And then I just do some fun stuff. And right before I go to bed, literally, I've climbed into bed, I write down 3 gratitudes for the day. And then I turn my Audible book back on, my fun book, and I listen to that as I fall asleep.
Okay. Wow. I'm so glad I asked this question. That was great insight. For someone that doesn't have an ideal week, you certainly have a lot of productive routines. What I took away from listening to you on this segment or this portion was that you've really taken the time to get to know you. When I met you, you're high energy and I could tell that you're a high achiever. You're an owner of multiple businesses. I like to call it multi-passionate. So you have a lot of things that you're super passionate about. And then to have this conversation and find out that you have found ways to be productive throughout your day while still keeping your own schedule. You get to pick your son up every day and you get to be at his games, and all with knowing the end of the day, you've accomplished your top 3 to 5 things that you've set intentions out for.
Yes.
Now,
and I also always have my iPad with me. So for instance, we had to go to a meeting for my son. He's an Eagle Scout. So it was his last interview before he got his Eagle Scout. And there ended up being a problem with the timing. And we were going to have to wait for 45 minutes. And my husband literally said, "We're fine. Betsy has her iPad with her so she can get some work done." So
that's so funny. I think my husband would probably say the same thing. I don't work off of an iPad, but I do work off of my phone, and I do try to steal those kind of times to get stuff done. I'm always definitely looking for that. One of the things is we have to drive across town. I'll ask my husband if he could drive and I'll sit in the front seat and I'll be going through working on something of value that I can mark off my to-do list because...
Oh yes, definitely. I do that too.
Yeah. Now I don't do that all the time. Sometimes the car's a great time to chat and have conversations with your family. And other times if everyone's not talking, I would just as well want to cross something off my to-do list. So totally the same there.
Yes.
Now, let's transition into the topic that we had discussed that I thought would be very beneficial. And I think that it's actually a perfect segue because you just went through almost what I would call a perfect ideal day, right? But I want to talk about how we are productive when life throws us a curveball. And I've read some of your stuff. And so I know that you're from Houston and you guys just had a major flood. That's a major life event in your city. Your son, you've mentioned that he's really sick. So you spend a lot of time in hospitals and doctor's appointments and things like that. And so when you have your day laid out and you have intentions of being productive, how do you manage those curveballs when life throws them at you?
Well, I think there are two keys. One is that I do have a plan. So I know what tasks I'm going to need to get done that week, kind of my most important things that really will make a difference when I get them done. So I'm able to kind of pick up and do those tasks as the time becomes available. For instance, if we're at a doctor's appointment, I have on my task list things that are low concentration type tasks that I can do anywhere. That's just kind of, I have to sign off on a lot of notes in my speech therapy practice. So I can go through those notes easily and sign them off while we're in a waiting room or something like that. Same thing if my son is sick and so I'm distracted because I'm worried about him, I can go through and find those tasks that don't require all of my mental energy in order to get them done. And then I know what I need to do when I do have 15 minutes of actual focused, good mental energy times. And I think it's because I do come up with that task list every week and every night for the next day. So I try to give myself a lot of grace when he's sick or when there's some other catastrophe going on and allow myself to kind of get things done that don't require my full energy.
Okay, so just to reiterate, make sure I understood correctly, when you're creating your task list, you're super clear about what needs your undivided focused attention work versus items that are just busy work, but they keep moving the needle forward. And it's almost as like you're playing the game that if you can cross off the things that keep you busy, that don't take your focused attention, that when you are sitting at your desk or you're sitting in your car and you have that focused time, you're not worried about all those other things because they got done. And now you could really deep dive into work that matters.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
That's excellent. I have a question. So when your mindset is affected because your child is sick, or I had read one of your articles and it was very traumatizing, and I'll use that word, you didn't, but like the flood in Houston. And the reason I use that word is because I'm going to cry right now. I volunteered for a week in September in Houston. And I did not know what I was getting myself into when I went down there. And what I saw and what I smelt and what I experienced was devastation. And one of your writings, you shared how you woke up and you just didn't feel like working. Like it seemed like the weight of the world was on your shoulders. There wasn't anywhere to get away from it. It was around you, even though your home wasn't flooded. And you shared some really good tips on how you reset your mindset. And I'd like you to share that with our listeners.
Well, that day, I believe I wanted to go for a walk. Sometimes I feel like I really need fresh air and to get outside. And I couldn't walk in our neighborhood. My neighborhood is 75% flooded. So I couldn't walk in the neighborhood. It's not safe. And as you said, it smelled terrible. We have lost the smell now, thank goodness, 3 months later. But
sorry to interrupt. When I visited, I did a lot of Facebook Live videos. And in one of the neighborhoods that I worked in, the streets were actually covered with dead fish, like everywhere you walked from the levees that were let loose. And so that neighborhood had been flooded not because of the rain, but because they had let one of those go. And so there was dead fish everywhere. And when I was sharing my experience there, the most vivid was the smell that was just everywhere. Like it hit you like just so badly when you'd get off the bus or when I showed up. So yeah, I totally get you couldn't walk through the neighborhood, but go ahead.
So I did find a park that's actually really close to a neighborhood that flooded, but they had done a great job of quickly kind of getting it back up and running. So I walked over there. I was still I just could not get myself going. And I basically just made mindset shifts by giving myself grace, first of all, and saying, okay, I'm not going to write a book today, but I might be able to cross off some other things on my to-do list. So I did that. And then I realized I was in yoga pants and a t-shirt, which sometimes I can be productive in yoga pants and a t-shirt, but that day it just wasn't happening for me. So I changed clothes and I wear actually a work uniform, basically. I wear jeans and either a nice t-shirt or I have t-shirts with my Your App Lady logo or my Your App Lady branding on them. So I usually wear that with jewelry and some kind of jacket or whatever. So I don't ever have to worry about what I'm wearing each day. That's what I wear every day. But this day I had not changed. I hadn't gotten into that outfit yet. So I changed clothes, and just changing clothes, I think, was the biggest factor that day, where I just was like, okay, now I've like set the stage and I'm ready to actually get something done. So I think giving myself grace, changing locations, and changing clothes were the three things that gave me that mindset shift, where it still wasn't the most productive day I've ever had, but I did move the needle forward that day. And I felt much better about myself and our community by kind of getting out of the funk by making that shift.
Right. Okay. I think that that's really valuable because I think many of our listeners probably do work from at home, and they have days where they wake up and they're just not feeling it. And it's amazing that some days just taking a shower, getting dressed, maybe going to a coffee shop or a park is all that's needed really to kind of make that shift in the mindset. Because the worst thing would be, it's not that you have a bad mindset day one day, but it's if that one day leads to the next day, leads to the next day. And so really taking active actions of just asking yourself, like, what's the next right thing that I can do to try and shift the way that I'm feeling, just to be really authentic. So you're telling a story that had happened a little while back from you, but as of the time of this recording, it's 3:00 my time. And today was one of those days for me. I had worked from at home. All of last week was Thanksgiving. Well, the idea was to work from at home, but on Wednesday, I fell down the stairs. And so I was dealing with chiropractor appointments and massage and just like taking medicine to feel better and just kind of working through that over this week. And I had such big hopes for what I was going to get done. I was going to get projects done in my business because I didn't have any client appointments and all this other stuff. Well, I was actually looking really forward to Monday. Monday was I'm back to my normal routine. And I woke up this morning and I just wasn't feeling it. And honestly, I probably could have talked myself out of coming into the office, but I knew that if I just got up, got dressed, took a shower, got dressed up and showed up, that I would feel better. And I do feel better because I took those actions. Had I not just been like, oh, I'm so sore still, or all of those things that kind of go through our head where we start negotiating with ourselves. And then we negotiate with ourselves and then we totally tank our productivity. But in my experience, because I'm not perfect with productivity either, it's something that we choose every single day. It's that what would have happened if I would have fallen prey to the way I feel today? Then tomorrow, and I had an inkling of not wanting to work, what does that look like? Now am I going into 2 days? And so the best thing that I could do is exactly the words that you said, Betsy, which was come with grace. And so I looked at my calendar and I did the same thing. I figured out what it is I absolutely had to do. So obviously this podcast was one of them. I'm recording a couple other intros and outros to my podcast. And I had some contracts I had to get out to new clients that just started with me. Now, once I readjusted my expectations for today, now that I got all that done, it's only 3:00. Anything above that's icing on the cake. And I still feel really positive about my day because I gave myself grace. So that's my little story. It's very similar to yours, but I think that people need to hear that productivity is not as easy as you wake up, you set your intentions, and that's just the way it goes. It's a choice that we make every single day. And for many of us, it's a choice to make the next right action in our business every hour. I think that people need to hear inspiring stories that it's not just them. Because I don't know about you, Betsy, but entrepreneurship can be quite lonely when you think everybody else has got it figured out except for, yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and sure. I don't have an office. I office from home, but I do go out into the community and go to coffee shops or go into a hotel lobby, or I used to go to the libraries. Our libraries are still closed from the flood, but I have all these different places that I go to because sometimes I can't work from home. I'm distracted by clutter, or I think, oh, I should be working on that, not something on my home rather than my work. So I think that grace and changing locations are key, but I do totally believe every day you have to plan to be productive. And I think some people get into a slippery slope of, I didn't get anything done today, I'm not getting anything done tomorrow. It kind of builds on itself.
So true.
And I love being able to check things off my to-do list. And
doesn't it feel amazing?
Yes. So sometimes I even put things on my to-do list just to be able to check them off. That keeps me motivated to keep going forward. I checked off that I got the mail out of the mailbox. So now it's like, oh, I did that one day. I can do these other things that take more energy and effort.
That's right. You're building momentum and you're leveraging your small wins, which is very, very good for our mindset. So to that one, I'm also not generally a morning person where I can show up to the office and get straight to my most focused work. And so I do something that most productivity specialists don't recommend. And so what works for me is that I cross off as many little things off my to-do list to get the ball rolling. And so I take those wins, and they're things that needed to get done, but they weren't huge things that are going to move the needle. They weren't my most focused, high priority tasks for the day. But then I leverage those wins and it moves me right into my focused work so that I'm going in with great mindset, momentum. And that's what I have found works best for me. And so I love it. The crossing it off, there's a big, whether you do it digitally or on paper, there's just a big psychological win there.
Definitely.
And then the second thing that you said was in my productivity straight talk community, we were actually having a discussion about where is the best place to have focused work. And one of the options was a coffee shop. Because my story is that when I first started my business, I came from corporate where my office, right outside my office, were all my employees in cubicles. And so there was a lot of white noise and just buzzing. And I had figured out and learned how to do focused work with a lot of white noise in the background. And then when I quit and I started working from home, I swear, the trash guy distracted me. The birds, I could hear everything outside, like the birds jumping on the branches, like anything would distract me because it was so quiet. And you would think that doesn't make sense. I should be most productive when it's quiet, and I wasn't. And so I would go sit in a coffee shop, and I literally started my business the first year and a half in the corner of a small locally owned coffee shop because that's where I found my most focused work to get done. And I thought, that's weird, but it works for me. And then when I posted in my Facebook group, somebody posted, and I'll put a link in the show notes for today's episode, but they posted that there's apps that have sound of coffee shops. And so I could have been working at home with coffee shop noise going on in the background or in my headset. Yeah, I thought it was so great. So for anyone else that needs white noise, there's actually like coffee shop white noise out there. So I will definitely share the link in the show notes if you're interested in that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have not listened to those. I do occasionally listen to like the YouTube videos that are like the focused classical music that's supposed to help you focus and kind of those kind of things. If I have to do a lot of reading, that's what I do best too.
Right.
Otherwise, if I'm doing writing and creating content or thinking about my business, I also do best in a coffee shop where I don't know people. I can't go to the same one too often because if I know people there, that ruins the experience for me because I want to talk to them.
Right. No, you're a very friendly person. And so I could imagine that if you visited a coffee shop a couple times, you'd be friends with everybody there. So.
Yes. So I have to be really intentional to not make any friends.
That's great. Those are some great tips. I feel like we covered a lot of different topics today, but essentially what we're trying to share is that you are just like the listeners. I'm just like every listener listening. Like we all have our productivity challenges and we need to find the way that honors the way that we can be most productive by honoring who we are. That there's not one set way to be productive, whether it's a nap in the afternoon or listening to cafe noise. We all need to figure out what it is that creates the most successful environment for ourselves. And I can't wait to listen to some of the comments from our listeners on how they find their way to be most productive uniquely, the most unique ways.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's going to be interesting. Yeah.
I think it will be. I think we're opening up a good conversation. So I can't leave without asking you, and this might put you on the spot because I didn't give you headway, but since you're the app lady, what is your favorite app to keep you most productive or save time?
Let me think. I have so many favorite apps, as you can imagine. I actually use my bullet journal, so an actual paper and pen journal for my daily to-do lists and my daily schedule. I love, it's actually software. It's not an app, called StepShot that I just got on AppSumo last week. It allows you to make really quick tutorial PDFs using screenshots. That's probably like my favorite thing right now. And I made a tutorial for my employees like in less than 10 minutes with it. Because as you mouse click, it takes a screenshot.
No, hey, that sounds amazing. Okay, say the name of it again.
StepShot.
StepShot. Okay. That's really good because when you're able to pour into your team and effectively delegate with good instruction, that means it's leveraging time for you to focus on your high value activities.
Yes. And then the app is probably Trello. I have become obsessed with Trello, and I use it for communication between my administrative assistant and I on prioritizing what needs to be done next and which steps I'm working on and what steps she's working on. And just to keep everything on a timeline and within a system, I use Trello a lot for that. And then the app Voxer I use for a lot of things. But the most productive thing I do with it is communicate with my administrative assistant. If your listeners don't know what Voxer is, it's kind of like a walkie-talkie app. So you can text message within it, but you can also send a voice message without having to go through the whole voicemail procedure. So it's kind of like a phone call in that I call it a monologue. So I'm just sending her monologues of me spitting out what I want to say to her, and then she can send me a monologue back. And so it's much faster because we don't have the back and forth of a conversation.
Yes.
And then we also we have all those conversations stored within that one app. Now, occasionally there's something complicated. I'm like, I'll send a Vox to her and say, I've just got to call you. I'm going to call you now. Sometimes you need the back and forth.
Yes, to talk it out. Yeah.
But it's a huge time saver for me to use Voxer for my communication with her.
Okay. I love that. So I have not actively used Voxer, but I've heard a lot of people do use it. With regards to Trello, I am absolutely in love with Trello. In fact, an episode that just actually went out this week, which was episode 29, was my top time-saving programs that I use, and one of them was Trello. So depending on when you're listening to this, I am either collecting an interest list of people that are looking to learn Trello in the way that I utilize it to be most productive, or if you go to this link, you will actually find the training because so many people were interested and I moved forward on it. So you can go to theproductivityspecialist.com/Trello, and there you'll either find the training that's up and live by the time this episode is released, or you can sign up for the interest list and I will contact you as soon as it's up and live. Because I think that there's a lot to be learned with Trello to be able to look at it as a workflow and clear communication with your team. I absolutely really, really love that app as well.
Yeah, it's great. And it's so robust. And we started using it in a very minimal way. And then I'm adding more and more uses with it. And one of my, as your app lady, one of my recommendations for people is to find apps they really love and kind of stick with those. Like not feel like you have to use 25 different apps.
So true.
It's like you don't need to have every app that's similar to Trello for your processes and your workflow. You just need the one that really works with your brain. And I looked at Asana and Trello, and I like Trello better, but I could have used Asana, but I sent them both to my administrative assistant and told her to look at them and decide which one she liked the best. And she liked Trello the best, and so that's what we went with because I wanted her to feel really comfortable with it. I think it is really important just to don't feel like you have to delve into every single app or every single piece of software out there. Just find ones that work really well for you and help make you more productive and make your life better.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that there's a lot of people that need to go on an app diet because they just collect one app after another. And I actually have an article called There's No App for That. And essentially, it's a great read. But essentially, my belief is that there's no app that's going to make you more productive because productivity is investing your best time into your best activities. However, the right app will save you time so that you can focus on your best activities. And so I'm always looking for time-saving apps. Now, with that being said, if you are taking the time to learn a new program, get you and your team onboarded on it, and then not following through and then going to another one, any time that you might have saved is being lost because you're trying a new app and then you're going to the next and going to the next.
Yeah,
right. For sure.
Well, and I'm glad you're thinking about doing a course on Trello, because I am a huge believer in training. You need to learn how to use things correctly. And it's such a time saver to just take a course on something or watch videos on it, or, however, read about it, however you learn the best. And so you can actually use those things productively.
Yes, Betsy, I feel like you may have one app that you use and then you see an ad or someone talks about a particular feature another app has and you're like, shiny object syndrome. You're like, yes. But if you would have taken the time to, like you said, learn it, use a training, or go through, sometimes a lot of the programs have like knowledge centers and trainings in their own program, you'll realize that actually the program you had that feature already. You just didn't know because you didn't take the time to learn it. So
right.
Very, very, very good points here. All right, great. So this was a great conversation, Betsy. Before we end today, if my listeners want to learn more about you and follow you, how do they find you?
I am on LinkedIn as Betsy Furler. It's Furler. Also Twitter as Betsy Furler. I have a Your App Lady page on Twitter too, but I have much more activity on the Betsy Furler Twitter page. I also do Medium under Betsy Furler. And my website is www.communicationscircles.com.
Excellent, Betsy. Thank you so much for being here today. And until we talk, I hope you make it a productive one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So you just got done listening to my interview with Betsy. I have absolutely grown to love these entrepreneurial case study interviews because I am super passionate about two things, and entrepreneurship is one of them and productivity is the other. And when I can combine the two into an interview and really talk to everyday entrepreneurs about their challenges with productivity, how they've overcome them, and the results that they've experienced both personally and professionally, that just fuels me. Working on our productivity and improving the way that we manage our time has so many benefits. It helps us increase our profits, decrease our stress. It lets us have the ability to go after our goals and achieve them in a more direct, shortcutted path than being distracted and overwhelmed. Productivity really has so many benefits in our lives that, we get to show up and be present for our children and our family and maybe in our community while still juggling being an entrepreneur and a business owner. And so as I pull back the curtains, I plan on having many, many more entrepreneurial case studies here on our podcast, Productivity Straight Talk. I have loved having you listen to this episode of Productivity Straight Talk, but I need to be straight with you. No change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on what you learned today, what are you willing to take action on? Did you have any ahas or, oh my gosh, Betsy experiences the same thing as I do. And, she's able to get out and go to the park and change up her afternoon. Or, maybe that is something that you can implement in your day to day. How can you ensure that you're productive in the days or weeks when life throws you a curveball? Because I don't know about you, but I will just speak for myself. Life is always throwing me a curveball. We have the best laid plans. We know what our day is going to look like or our week's going to look like. And then something happens. For example, last week, I had the most amazing week planned out with all these productive projects and interviews and clients. And if you looked at my schedule, I was on fire on Monday. But I ended up not feeling well and I was out of work for about a day and a half. And so I played catch up when I got back. And a lot of the extra projects to move my business forward had to be put to the next week. And my week did not look anywhere near the same on Friday afternoon as it did as planned on Monday. So how do you recoup your day? How do you get back into action? How do you make sure that 1.5 days of being out sick doesn't make your entire week unproductive? You need to be able to adjust. You need to be able to ensure that you're in this right mindset to move forward, that you can determine what your priorities are and what absolutely needs to get done. There are so many different things to think about, but I want you to know that Everyone has curveballs. And sometimes it comes from, the people around us, whether it's our children or family members or life events like Betsy had with Hurricane Harvey. The point is that when life throws you those curveballs, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to reclaim your time so that you can ensure that you're still going after your goals in a big way? All right. So there's my little pep talk for what you can do with the information that you got out of my interview with Betsy. I really want you to internalize what you learned today and just take one action step. What is one thing, one bite of knowledge that you can ensure that you will take next time life throws you a curveball? And if you want to share your actionables and receive support, guidance, and motivation from entrepreneurs just like you, join me on the inside of our Productivity Straight Talk community. You can join by going to productivitycommunity.com. Just leave me your name and email address, and I will send you a personal invitation to join us on the inside. And if you've enjoyed this episode of Productivity Straight Talk, I would be so grateful if you'd share it with an entrepreneur. Give them the gift. Give them the gift of knowledge. Give them the gift of being able to take action in their business to go after their dreams and their goals in a different way. And so that's my straight talk for you today. And until next time, have a productive week.